Welcome to Live Breathe Film, episode 107. You're here with Corey, Doug, and Murph. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be sharing our film and television recommendations from the first half of 2024. So we'll get right into it. This is kind of our mid-year recommendation list. We're not going to do any shows or films. No shows currently airing or that had episodes airing after 6:30, June 30th. Or any films released after 6:30, whether it's films that showed in festivals that we may have already seen but haven't been released like officially in theaters to the masses. We'll hold off on talking about those or anything that has come out in the first 2 weeks of July because some things have that we've seen, but we'll hold off on talking about those if they were to make our list when we do our end of the year best ofs. But let's just jump right into film. I guess we'll do first since we are technically a film podcast. Guys, you want to start with our recommendations that we've for films we've all seen and all either loved or liked at least?
Yeah. That works.
All right, let's do that then. I guess we'll start with the biggie. I want to say this is probably the consensus number one film for all of us. If you were to give a consensus number one film for us as a group, and that's Dune Part 2. Am I wrong in saying that would be?
Yeah, I think that's valid.
I mean, I know it's my favorite personally of the year so far. Corey, is it your favorite of the year so far, or right up there?
Yeah.
It's definitely it was definitely the top one that we know we've all seen.
Yeah, I mean I think it's one probably for me just based on lack of movies I've seen and competition.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but it's not like my all-time favorite, so I could see something come in and displace it. Like maybe Deadpool and Wolverine.
You're getting that talked up already, trying to boost that box office.
I mean, I'm excited for that movie, so hopefully it's good.
No, I'm very much hoping that it's a strong film. I saw the director got hired for something else recently, or was in talks for something because his name has been floating around for Avengers 5, but
if
he takes this job, I don't know if he'd be able to do both.
They're saying that he's now probably out of contention.
Okay.
For Avengers.
Gotcha. And I also saw the Russo. So we're going on a tangent now, but I saw the Russo brothers tried to go put their names back in, and they didn't want them, which sounded crazy if true.
Yeah, I heard that as well, and I'm not really sure why you wouldn't.
Yeah, that doesn't
the
make any
Russos
sense.
like batting 1,000 for them. I don't know why you'd not want to use them.
Very strange.
For so many reasons, even marketing, you would get people back in the seats because they'd see their names.
Yeah, I mean they haven't had a ton of success outside of Marvel, but
no, they haven't had any success outside of Marvel, outside of their sitcoms back in the day.
Yeah, but they seem to be, when they seem to be able to, create magic when it's a Marvel movie. So
yeah, no, they've did it 4 times, so they've created a hell of a lot more magic than magic has been created since they've stopped with Endgame. So yeah. All right, tangent over. We can talk more about Deadpool and Wolverine later. But yeah, Dune Part 2. So yeah, it seems like that's our consensus number one. Mostly, I mean, it's a sequel that lived up to all the hype. And although the series is not over yet, if it did end with Dune Part 2, I wouldn't necessarily be upset. Just because, like, on the note it left on, it wasn't like a complete conclusion or anything, but you could see the direction of where things are going, and it's a kind of like a bleak outlook, and nice subversion of where it looked like the series was going with the first part back in 2021.
Yeah.
Corey is the reader of the book. How would you compare it?
I definitely they did a fantastic job adapting it. The book is still better just because you get more of
All
the
books are better.
yeah. I mean, you get more of the story. There's more room to breathe. The medium is different. All those reasons that we like the book more than the movie. When you've read the book, but it does a really good job like adapting that story and there's you could tell that Denis like really understands the subject matter to the point where he's able to like make little tweaks to the movie that benefited the film that wouldn't work in the book, but it still doesn't change the story at all. It doesn't change where they're going, but it was really well done, especially the fact that back when part one came out, and I was just like, is he fucking out of his mind to split this in two parts, especially split it right here? But now, I mean, it makes sense, and it was definitely worth it for sure.
Yeah.
And I think the consensus for the most part, which is shocking. I mean, people complain about everything, but I think as far as people that have read the book, they like it. They don't hate it. They like it a lot, but they know it's different. They're like same type of thing. Like, it's different from the book, but it's a very good companion, to the book, which you don't see very often.
Yeah, one thing I found interesting is it seems like there's still like it's not like an overwhelming split, like everyone's saying, or not even a split, but everyone just saying Dune Part Two is better. But there is still like a split of some people who preferred the first part of the film versus Part 2, which I thought was kind of interesting because based on like the pre-release hype, it seemed like everyone was going to be like Part Two is better, but they are very like pretty different in tone. Like they're very different in tone, so I could see how some people would prefer Part One for Part Two, because Part Two is the scale and scope is so much larger, a lot more action. While it still also does have a lot of character work, whether with the returning characters or the new characters, it's definitely bigger than the first one was.
Yeah, I think two is way better than one, personally.
As do I.
One's a lot of world building, which two doesn't have to do. I thought the music, like the score, was upgraded. I thought everything was just an upgrade from the first one. So I think that's part of the reason too. Two is one of those sequels where it feels like they've kind of one up themselves over the first one, kind of, a little bit. Not to use the comparison we always use, but like the Dark Knight.
I knew that was coming. I was thinking it.
Where it one ups everything about the first one.
Yeah.
Other than maybe Gotham. But
yeah.
I don't want to start a tangent on that now too.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see where we rank this at the end of the year and how it compares to the other major part twos. We didn't include Furiosa on this list, which was one that was, I think, on all of our most anticipated of the year. Doug hasn't seen it yet, but Corey and I didn't feel it was necessary to be on this list. But we'll see how Inside Out 2 is not on this list, wasn't on the anticipated list. But we still have Joker 2, Gladiator 2, and Beetlejuice 2 to come later this year among the big part twos. So we'll see if any of those other ones make it at the end of the year. This next one, it's just straight up popcorn film, but just one that we all enjoyed. I don't think it was on any of our like most anticipated lists or anything like that, but it was just a fun flick. And yeah, I think just the chemistry between the leads is what made it make our list and feel like it was worth talking about. And that's The Fall Guy. So, what did you guys all enjoy the most from this film?
I think
Why would you recommend it to others?
I think for me, I mean, it had a little bit for everyone. You like action movies, it had that in spades. You know, if you like romance, comedy, it had all that. Um, but the one thing that I really liked is how they marketed this movie. Like, this was one film where you saw only a little bit of what actually was going to be happening in the film. They didn't tell you the whole story. You didn't see the whole movie in trailers, in an abridged version. You saw what just enough, and then the film itself went very much a complete different direction very quickly within like the first 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes of the movie. Um, and I liked that. That was fun. So kudos to the writers. I thought it was a well written film. It was funny. It had everything that you were expecting to see, and then a little bit more. Just sucks that it didn't do so well in theaters. It really should have done better. More people should have saw it.
Yeah, if it
Yeah,
I feel like if it came out later this summer, it probably would have made more money.
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right. I think this movie, what I particularly liked about it was just kind of the action and the way that the
It's
action
great.
was handled. I thought, yeah, the action was just really well done.
The
Kind
director
of feels like,
he's pro when it comes to action, having been a former stuntman.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, kind of felt a little bit like a '90s movie, like a '90s action movie in a lot of ways, where like the plot, while there, it's really more about the action.
Yeah,
Um, and just the way that they did all the action and stunts was just a lot of fun.
yeah, and the stakes aren't necessarily like world ending and things
No,
like
yeah,
that.
it's more, yeah, it's just kind of like a more fun action movie, and you could just tell they had a lot of fun making the movie. Um, I've said to you guys, I think what stops this movie from probably being higher on my list is just I feel like the ending was kind of weird, in that it kind of ends twice. Um, or there's two. What I mean by that is there's two kind of like finale action scenes where it feels like they probably could have just picked one or the other. But other than that, I mean, it's a really fun movie. I was actually surprised because I went into it with pretty low expectations, and I thought it was a blast.
Yeah. Corey brought up a good point about the trailer. When he had seen the movie before me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was surprised by how much it was different from the trailer." And I was like, "The trailer felt like it showed the movie beat by beat by beat," which was
Mm-hmm.
something that we had talked about before this episode that new movies seem to be doing nowadays, just showing the entire film in the trailer to get people to see a new type of film versus a sequel because they're trying extra hard to sell something, and it's kind of an annoying thing. But like they really kind of misled in the trailer, despite feeling like it was showing the movie beat by beat by beat. Because yeah, really like right from the get go, it kind of feels different, and like throughout the film, it does go in a different direction than what I was expecting based on the trailer.
Yeah, and I think what I was expecting was more of like a drama with action,
Hmm.
and I think it's kind of more action than drama.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a dramatic movie. Like
And I,
it's an action comedy,
yeah, and I think if they
romance
probably would have
more than anything.
sold sold the action comedy more and the drama less, I think it probably would have done better.
Yeah, and I definitely enjoyed all the like the inside baseball like Hollywood jokes, references, and things like that.
Yeah,
Um, like I know, like I was one of like it was a big like probably like pretty much a sold out auditorium when I saw it, but there were certain jokes that like I was the only person laughing at them um, because they were like very targeted to people who like fucking love film. Um,
In the know.
yeah, but not that I'm in the industry or anything, but I read so much about it that I was like, okay, that was really good. So yeah, yeah, Blunt and Gosling had incredible chemistry. It would be cool to see them work together in something else because it doesn't seem like a Fall Guy sequel would necessarily be in the cards because the budget was so high and it didn't make that much money in relation to it. But oh well.
It was cool to one other note. It was cool to see them use the film to celebrate stuntmen, which you don't normally you don't ever see.
Yeah.
Stuntmen, are usually just glorified as that actor, that they're trying to portray or a character they're trying to portray. So that was really cool.
Yeah, they made a major pitch for the Academy adding a best stunt category, best stunt or
As they should.
slash choreography category at the Oscars, which I think it's kind of inevitable that it'll be added at some point before the decade is out, which they should, like you said, Corey. So, all right. Next up, we got I think the only streaming only movie on our list, or maybe Corey's yours. You have one on here that's might be streaming only.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's VOD. I think VOD only at this
Gotcha.
point. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've got Hitman. Richard Linklater's film debuted at a couple of, or at least two of the fall film festivals last year, or was showing at a couple of the fall film festivals. It's picked up by Netflix and unceremoniously dropped in beginning of June on Netflix of this year. Yeah, this is kind of like Glenn Powell's, I would say, big breakthrough movie as like a leading man versus like either a supporting character or like a co-lead. Because this is kind of like his movie where he just gets to like shine throughout. You're following him. It does have some incredible sporting turns, both from Adria Arjano, if I'm pronouncing her name right, from Andor, and Austin Emilio. The two of them were both a blast in the film. The chemistry, if we're talking about chemistry again, Glenn Powell and Adria had it in spades.
Glenn Powell seems to have chemistry with everybody.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, you're not wrong about that. Whether it's an antagonistic role, like in anyone like that he's basically dealing with in Top Gun Maverick, or with Sydney Sweeney, whether they're in their hate each other or love each other moments of anyone but you. But yeah, Glenn Powell he's getting to the point where it seems like he can act opposite a fucking mop and have chemistry with that. So we'll see how he is with Daisy Edgar Jones in Twisters, but based on how Daisy Edgar Jones was with Paul Mescal and normal people, it shouldn't be a problem because she's somebody who has great chemistry as well with her opposing partner. But I guess that will also depend on the script being well written and things like that. But we'll know about Twisters soon enough. But yeah, Hitman was just a darkly comedic, romantic film. I guess that would be the way I would describe it. Starts a little slow. Then I'd say about at the halfway point when Adria joins the film, that's when it sort of picks up and is a blast basically until the end of the film. But yeah, it was just another nice collaboration or another nice film from Richard Linklater, and they've collaborated a bunch, him and Glenn Powell, but this was the first like huge one. I mean, he co-wrote the film with Richard Linklater, and it was the first time he was like the star of one of his films. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this type of streaming film gets talked about at the end of the year. Because I feel like if it got released at a better time, like it would have a much better chance of having been talked about. Maybe Netflix didn't release it right next to The Killer, like with Michael Fassbender last year, because it's such like similar subject matter, even though it's done completely different. But Doug, you said yeah, so I'll let you expand on that.
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think I would have. I mean, outside of being interested in Glenn Powell movies, just because seems to be picking good movies as of late, and seems to be kind of on the rise. I haven't really heard anybody talk about this movie. It didn't really feel like Netflix was pushing it all that hard either.
No.
No.
So, yeah, I don't know how much people are going to talk about it unless they just kind of organically find it on Netflix. But
Yeah,
I just
or
haven't
if
gotten the sense that
film
it's.
critics really kind of like push it at the end of the year, like they bring it back up into the conversation.
I hadn't seen Adria. What did you say her last name was?
Adriano
Um,
Giorno.
Or Jonah. Um, I hadn't seen her in anything other than Andor. Um, so I kind of just knew her as the really attractive woman in Andor.
yeah.
But she's good. I thought she was good. I thought she did a
Oh,
good job, and
yeah,
it felt like Andor could probably use her better
yeah.
because she doesn't really do much in Andor.
She like had charisma to spare in
Yeah.
Hitman. But yeah, no, I'm looking at her filmography. I've seen her, and she had a recurring role in True Detective season 2, the
Yeah.
season that nobody wants to talk about. I saw her in Six Underground and Triple Frontier, 2 other
Oh
Netflix
yeah, Six
movies.
Underground.
Um,
That was a movie.
it looks like she was the bride in the new Father of the Bride remake from a couple years ago that was direct to HBO Max with
Unfortunately, missed that one.
Andy Garcia. But yeah, she was the female lead in that. But yeah, I didn't see that one either. But yeah, this seems like her breakout role.
Yeah, I mean, if people see it,
If
it'd be her
yeah,
breakout role. Her and Glenn Powell would have been really good in like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I think, type movie.
yes. If they do Mr. or Mrs. Smith as a anthology series potentially, like well, no, they can't be. No, they can.
I,
'Cause there's
I haven't seen all of it yet.
not that it's not an this doesn't spoil the anthology
Okay.
aspect of it. I was thinking, I'm like, wait a second, was she in it for a second? But that was the other actress who kind of they remind me of one another. They kind of have similar attitudes. She was in the pilot episode of Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Alexander Skarsgård.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I can't think of her name, but yeah, no, I mean, if they did it as an anthology show, you could totally throw the two of them into those roles of John and Jane Smith, and it would absolutely work. But that's a good casting call, Doug.
Yeah, it just feels like they would have like good chemistry, and you could buy both of them. I mean, obviously, Glenn Powell is kind of playing cool hitman already.
Yeah,
Um,
even though
so that wouldn't be
he starts
that
out
would
as nerdy dude, and he's playing cool suave hitman or
yeah.
pretending to be cool suave hitman.
Yeah, they
Um,
work really hard to make him not look cool. They like
yeah, Doug,
do
we're gonna
his hair like
put some,
2 feet.
put some jorts on you and make your hair
Glasses and,
need
like-
some glasses
Yeah.
and
Then like style his hair weird and
yeah, everything they can to make Glenn Powell not look like Glenn Powell.
yeah, pretty funny. But yeah, it was a fun movie. I think I wanted more from it. And I liked Fall Guy a lot better,
Yeah,
but it was fun. I mean, especially it was a Netflix streaming movie, so
It was also super short. I felt like this was one example of a movie that could have been another like half hour longer, and I think it would have made it better. Because it just like the climax was great, but it happened. I felt like it happened like way too fast. I was just like, I want more of these characters. Like I could have taken another like 20 minutes.
yeah. I mean, the movie gets better as it goes along, so
Yeah.
I can see that. Um,
I think that's mostly because, like you said before, the movie took a little bit to get going, and we didn't see the two main characters interact until like almost halfway through the movie.
yeah,
So that probably did it.
for sure.
the various characters he played was pretty funny though. That was a good moment.
yeah, they were good.
They're his Patrick Bateman like impression. Yeah, there were some
The
ridiculous
Russian.
ones. The Russian, yeah. Some that I wouldn't even know like how to describe like what he was doing. But
That
yeah,
weird like British
yeah, exactly.
blonde or
With like
redhead.
the trench coat and shit. He definitely got to do a lot. So I feel like if people saw this, they'd be like, okay, Glenn Powell, he's not just like the funny guy like with like the pretty face who has chemistry with like whoever. Like the dude can act. So yeah, and another if you want to see another Richard Linklater film with him, that's a blast. Everybody wants some. It was like the spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. That was like the first time I really like took notice of him, Wyatt Russell, and a bunch of other actors. I would definitely recommend checking that out.
It's funny you mentioned that movie because I literally just watched it 3 days ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never saw it. It just
Oh well,
was really good.
Kate was probably happy because her girl is in the movie.
That was the reason why we watched it initially. Why she pitched it, and then I was like, "Oh wow, I forgot about this movie. It was a Linklater movie that I haven't seen."
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it's just a fun hangout movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like a first weekend going into college type movie versus the end of like your senior year of high school or the end of your junior year of high school movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the 80s versus the 70s. But yeah, we definitely recommend that one. But all right, Corey, what I put a lot of movies, not a lot. I got like 6 or 7 movies on my list, some of which others of you have seen. Corey, your movie I did not see. Tell us about what you wish for.
Yeah, so this is like definitely more of like an indie, lower budget film. It doesn't look like it, but something that absolutely fall off everyone's radar because it's just on VOD. So it stars Nick Stahl. If anyone remembers, the last movie I remember him in was Sin City. He played Yellow Bastard. He was in. I'm trying to think what
Terminator
else.
3, Rise of the Machines.
There you go. Yeah. So it's been a really long time since I've seen him in a movie. But basically, the movie follows. He's a sous chef. He's going to visit a friend in another country. I think like South America, and his friend's staying at this like crazy house, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing a job," and the job ends up being like really shady as far as what they're catering for and who they're catering for, and it unfolds into like this, mystery thriller. Not really horror, but definitely has horror elements. It reminded me of what was that movie with Anya Taylor-Joy that came out last year where they went to like a tasting menu. Yeah, it reminded me a bit of that. Different premise, but it follows these chefs very closely, and then all the fucked up shit that is going on for this event that they're trying to show off.
Gotcha.
Really, really good. Trailer is very strong. That's the main reason why I was like, wow, this actually looks really good.
It was picked up from from one of the fall festivals last year.
Yeah, I think Fantasia. It blew
Premiered
up from there.
and then Magnet Releasing picked it up released it in select cinemas along with PVOD. Back in May.
Yeah, very strong cast. Pacing was fantastic. Was shot well. I thought it was a really strong movie. So that's probably one of the movies that kind of came out of nowhere for me. Like even out of like all the films we've seen this year, this is one that kind of sticks out that I just kind of picked up and was like, wow, that was actually fantastic.
Nice. Well, based on your recommendations, something definitely have to check out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even heard of this movie, so.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard about it. I had not heard about it until Corey had brought it up.
Yeah, definitely.
A
Definitely check out the
weeks
trailer.
back or
Yeah,
so.
check out the trailer. The trailer they cut was fantastic.
Okay.
I think you'd be in after seeing that.
Yeah, we'll do. And I imagine it'll be on a streaming platform before you know it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
imagine.
probably.
Which will make it easier to watch. Okay. Doug, you abstained from throwing any movies on your list.
Yep.
You talked about obviously all those three previously. Any of the ones on mine? I don't believe you've seen any of them yet, right?
No, I think I'm much stronger when it comes to TV.
Yeah, TV, you got a solid plate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll throw out my recommendations. I know Corey has seen probably half of these, so we can talk a little bit about them, but I won't get too deep into any of them. So I threw on the Bike Riders. I thought this one was full of strong performances, led by Jodie Comer, Austin Butler, and Tom Hardy, along with plenty of supporting actors: Boyd Holbrook, Norman Reedus, Michael Shannon, Mike Face. You can kind of go on and on. Had a stacked cast, but I wasn't someone who watched Sons of Anarchy, not like a big like motorcycle club guy, but I thought this looked pretty interesting, seeing like the rise and fall of a club, and being like semi-based on a true story. But yeah, really led to the performances, and the various character interactions, was the reason why I kind of the movie stuck with me after we saw it. And Corey, I believe you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I really liked it. The performances were really strong. I thought the movie was a little too long, but not to the point where it just felt like it dragged down the movie. It was like really a nitpick. I thought the movie, the pacing was great, story was fantastic. I thought that I didn't think Tom Hardy's accent was distracting at all.
No,
Which
no, neither did I. Jodie Comer had the most.
yeah,
It was a good accent, but it was like it was very distracting because it's like Jodie Comer talking like that.
yeah. So I thought that was
What type of accent did she have?
It's like a Fargo type
Yeah.
accent.
Midwest, like real thick Midwest
That's awesome.
accent.
Yeah, check out the trailer just for her at the first trailer, especially.
And she knocks it out of the park. Like it's very realistic, but it's like thick.
Yeah, I mean, her Villanella character was like all a bunch of different accents. And
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of see like Villanelle like undercover like doing this type of accent from Killing Eve. But yeah, and Tom Hardy, he was great. Like this was one of his best movies I've seen from him in a while.
Yeah. I think on that note, and Murph, I said this to you after we saw the movie, but I went into the movie expecting Jodie Comer and Austin Butler to steal the show, and it really ended up being Jodie Comer and Tom Hardy stealing, the show for me at least. Austin Butler was very much secondary.
He doesn't reveal too much about himself. He's much more of like a introspective type of character, other than some like brief moments where like he shows like a lot of emotion, whether it's like running into a fight or like kind of breaking down and crying. But yeah, he kind of keeps things like inside himself. But man, he's on a roll. I mean, we didn't talk about him in Dune Part 2, but between Dune Part 2, The Bike Riders, and then one of the TV shows I have on my list, he's had a killer year. And I would put these up against Elvis. And I'm really excited to see like what he's got coming down the pike.
Yeah, super talented.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he just has like an essence to him. And just like oozes cool.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah. He still kind of has his Elvis voice. It still hasn't fully left him. In 2 of the 3 roles I saw this year.
But this movie, this movie was filmed a long freaking time ago. Wasn't this
Yeah,
filmed before Dune? Probably Dune
this was.
Part Two.
I think it was filmed before Dune Part 2 and
Crazy.
after the TV show. Because I know the TV show, then Masters of the Air is the TV show.
Yeah.
Spoilers. I know when he was doing that, like he had to like have like a dialect coach like talk to him to like try to get the Elvis voice out, and yet you're very much hearing Elvis in a cockpit to a degree. But I think Bike Riders he was filmed after Masters of the Air, and it's starting to go away, but you still like can't help but hear traces of it. But then Doom Part 2, it's like not there at all.
Yeah, not
He's
there.
like he's
Right.
doing Stellan Skarsgård
Yeah.
in Doom Part 2.
Yeah, and hopefully that accent doesn't stick for him.
That's really funny.
Yeah. But all right, pivoting to another actor from Dune Part 2, Zendaya. I believe I'm the only one who's seen this one.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Challengers would be my second favorite film of the year so far. So Zendaya's got in that 1-2 spot. Only they could have got Euphoria season 3 on TV this year instead of probably next year. Fingers crossed it actually does go into production in January, like they're saying. Or they could have got a Spider-Man 4 out this year. Just be like icing on the cake for her year for me. But she actually absolutely crushes it in her 2 different roles as Chani and then Tashi Duncan in Challengers. But it's not just her in this one. Like it's the throuple of the film of her, Mike Faced, who's also in The Bike Riders, and Josh O'Connor, who I had never seen in anything before. I know he was on The Crown, but the 3 of them like all crush it. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is something that I'm probably going to end up picking up the vinyl. I thought it was their best score since the Social Network, and it's a film I would kind of like compare to the Social Network in the way the framing works. It's a lot of time jumping back and forth over the years, and going from different characters and kind of various perspectives on things. So yeah, I just love this film as a fan of tennis, as a fan of Zendaya. Like it's a 2 thumbs up, and as a fan of Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor, who are 2 of my favorite composers in film of the 21st century at this point. So highly recommend this one.
Yeah, it's one I've been tempted to check out. I've heard the trailers were a little bit misleading, where they kind of focused on the threesome
Yes.
aspect, and it's like that's just such a small part of the movie, and not really like the kind of gives a misimpression about what the movie's about.
Yeah, there's no like actual sex in the movie or anything. Like they give away like the most steamy scene of the movie is in the trailer. But and the scene doesn't play out how you expect. It's fucking hilarious. But yeah, it's more about how the 3 of the characters like are so like codependent on one another, on like more of an emotional level, and it's interesting. It's not what you expect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be interested in y'all's opinion when you eventually get to it this year. Because yeah, I think the only movie that we've talked about so far that's like widely available for streaming is Dune Part 2 on Max and Hitman on Netflix. I don't think nothing else so far is like widely accessible. But all right, next up, Civil War. Corey, you and I saw this one, right? You saw this? Yeah, we saw this together.
Yeah.
So we got A24 Civil War from Alex Garland. A dystopian look at a not realistic, fully realistic look at what a second Civil War would look like in America, but more of a look at. It's really more about following photographers, like war and like what war photographers go through, but just setting it in America to make it more like appealing to the masses, where it's got like an intriguing premise of a civil war, but it's really showing like kind of, I don't know, I guess you could say like bloodlust overall. Like all the characters have a degree of bloodlust, whether it's the people fighting one another, the psychotic Jesse Plemons performance in the film, or just even the photographers, like how they're just so steely-eyed and focused on getting shots of like the most horrible things. And like it follows like veteran war photographers along with like Kirsten Dunst, um, uh, Stephen, what is it? Stephen McKinley, something. Blanking on names. Searching Civil War, I would probably get the fucking 1800s, but no, Civil War film. Stephen McKinley Henderson and Wagner Mora, who are all like veteran photographers, and then Kaylee Spaney, who's having just a year ever since Priscilla, and hopefully absolutely kills it with Alien Romulus later this summer. She's like the newbie photographer, and it's kind of like you're like kind of going through it like
from her
seeing it
perspective.
from her perspective. She's like your point of view character, as like a regular audience member. But yeah, it's not as like it's a limited. It doesn't have the biggest budget in the world. Like yeah, it was A24's biggest budget, but it's only a $50 million budget, so they can only show like so much warfare and things like that. It really isn't until like the climax of the film where it kind of goes like pretty like balls out.
That's where they spent most of the budget, I'm sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's like just seeing like little skirmishes for the most part, but they're intense. The Jesse Plemons, I'll go back to him. There's like a 15-minute scene from before he's introduced to when he's in it. I was like edge of my seat. The intensity was so high, it just kept escalating. One of the best scenes of any film this year.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not necessarily a bad thing that you it's not big spectacle because sometimes those like more intimate scenes are way more thrilling and suspenseful than like
Yeah.
these big epic scenes where it's just like a CGI fest.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean this movie worked for me just because for mostly for that reason. Like the action was good, like and that's part of it, but seeing like the ramifications and following these characters as they go through it, in depth was the most interesting part about it. Like seeing how all of this is affecting like, just regular people. And their disconnection was fascinating as photographers, wartime
Yeah.
photographers. Like they have taught themselves because they need to be very disconnected from everything that's going on around it, doing the job, getting the photo, and then moving on. Even if it has to do with a friend who's also a photographer getting hurt.
Yeah, or if they're seeing somebody basically being tortured, like,
Right.
sorry, nothing you can do about it. Take some photos and leave.
Yep.
It was an interesting film, not exactly what I think people were expecting, and definitely not like a partisan movie. Like it doesn't really go like left or right. It keeps things fairly like ambiguous, to try to get like make it as accessible as possible, not like a political movie. But okay. Next up, I'll just talk about it real briefly, just because I thought this was just a fascinating film, because of the connection to us. Flip Side is the name of it. Independent film. Only released in so many theaters. I premiered at one of the festivals last year and was picked up. Judd Apatow is an executive producer of the film, but I wouldn't even know necessarily how to describe it. It's a documentary about a guy in like middle age, who started out as like a documentary filmmaker, didn't there would always end up being problems with his various projects. Ended up just becoming like a commercial, like literally like commercial director, like directed commercials. Um, Ended up being the corporate guy he did not want to be at. But what makes it interesting is that he started out his career working at a record store called Flipside in the town right near us. So like this was a record store I would go out with about like tag along with my dad when I was a kid. And it's showing like footage of the store back then and how it's just like kind of fallen apart over the years. It's still open now. It kind of parallels his like going back home to New Jersey from California and trying to like make this store come back to life, along with trying to bring back a lot of his various projects that he was working on back to life. One of them was an interview with David Milch, the writer of Deadwood, the creator of Deadwood and YPD Blue, who now has Alzheimer's. So he's interviewing him, which is fascinating, since he only like David Milch is like he's still there but not there. Like he doesn't like remember like speaking to him, but he could still talk like and be a very interesting subject. Judd Apatow's in the film because he's kind of the guy who got this filmmaker out, a documentarian out to LA to do a documentary for behind the scenes documentary for Funny People back in 2009. And then that's how he ended up just staying out in California and his career not being what he was expecting. But like I said, it's a tough movie to describe. I'd say it's probably harder for older audiences to watch because it goes through a lot like of like your life not turning out the way you expected, but yet still having a life that like you're happy with. Even if it's not like all your hopes and dreams weren't accomplished. It's weird. It's not like anything I've seen before, but the fact that it focuses so much on a store, actually two record stores right by us that we still frequent. And one of the stores, it's a trip, man. Like you, like literally, you'll fucking trip walking in the store because it's like a hoarder's like basement, basically, that you're walking into on like a first level of a main street of a town by us. And that was the store that you see it back in its glory days from footage back in like the late 80s, early 90s, to how it is now, where they talk about like, yeah, there's days where like not one customer comes in and them just trying to make it something again. So it's really interesting. But again, it's got a local aspect to it, which made me appreciate it more than probably the average viewer would, even though it seems like anyone who's seeing it, whether it's critics or audiences on the other side of the country who have no idea what this story is, they're getting a lot out of the film too, just because of, like I said, that like topic of like middle age and like hopes and dreams and things like that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this.
Have you gone in since seeing it? Have you gotten over there?
I haven't gone to the store since seeing the film. But last time I was in the store was last year, and like picked something up last year. But yeah, I've gone to the other record store more recently this year, which they talk about as like the competitor that is like much more modern in how they do things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm flipping through the photos of it. It's not the most inviting place.
Oh no.
No,
Not at all.
It's like very disorganized, but it put the owner in like a completely new light for me because like
over boxes.
He's so like non like communicative when you're there. Like he doesn't really talk like much at all. But then he's like got a great personality in this film. I'm like, where is this when I go into the store? When I'm like sometimes when I'm the only person there. And then there are other times when there are other people there. But if there are other people there, it's nearly impossible to move around.
Yeah, I can see that.
Two people walking in the same aisle is like
you have to climb over each other.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but
Yeah, I mean, even like the exterior looks like shitty.
oh, the exterior, it's hilarious. It talks
Been the
about
same since we were
how
kids.
the sign broke, and then like the town like wanted like was like you have to fix the sign, and he like fixed it in like the shittiest way possible, and he's like it's fixed. Um, but then like they eventually like fixed up the sign, and they have a nice sign now.
Oh, do
Um,
they?
they do. And that's like one of the like that's like one of the closing moments of the film. It's like over the credits is like the new sign being put up.
Okay.
Um, so it's still in business. It's still chugging along somehow, but it's nothing like how it was when I was a kid. Like tagging along, my dad would be buying like used CDs and stuff versus every now and then when I'm like, let me check and see if they have a vinyl that I'm looking for, and occasionally they do. Um, but yeah, it's one it's an indie film, very low budget documentary that I would recommend when it eventually shows up. It might even be on VOD now, but it's definitely not on streaming yet. Um, okay, two more films, two more A24 films, because this is very much in A24 year. I saw the TV Glow. This is a blast for anyone who watched like shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Are You Afraid of the Dark, P and P shows of the '90s, and then kind of showing like how important they are to younger people, or middle schoolers, high schoolers, etc., teenagers, and then I won't go into exactly the film and what it becomes. Um, but it's really following two outsiders who form a bond over this one TV show that they both loved. It's set in the 1990s, and then kind of following over the years the impact that the show has on them and how it kind of distorts their reality. And there's a lot of messages behind the film that I wouldn't want to spoil for people. And metaphors to larger things than just 90s TV. But the movie's a trip. Um, and like I said, as a fan of those types of shows when I was a kid, um, it was really cool to see.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I watched it a second time with Kate, and I liked it. I liked it even more the second time.
Yeah,
Definitely
it was one
strange.
that I liked more the second time as well.
Yeah, definitely strange. A lot to unpack. Like you said, a lot of metaphors and just like symbolism. But it really it really had like an interesting message. Like, and the acting was very strong throughout. Movie was shot fantastically. Like I thought it was really
Another movie shot in right by us.
Yep. Yeah. This we were talking about this after, I guess, after I saw it with you, Murph. But like the movie was filmed in a bunch of locations, towns around us, but then also in the town that we grew up in.
Yep.
There was a segment shot in a grocery store that's now closed down. But we never knew because it probably happened in the middle of the night,
Yeah,
when they did it.
exactly.
But when you see the scene, we were just like, that looks familiar. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, really good film.
Yeah,
I
Bridget
think,
Payne, Lundy, and Justice Smith both killed it.
yeah.
It's just like a haunting film. It's not a horror film. I wouldn't know how to fully describe
Even
like
though they marketed it as a
pigeonhole
horror
it
film,
as
horror
it.
film.
They did market as a horror film,
Yeah,
but
weird.
actually it's haunting. It'll stick with you, but
Haunt.
it's not. Yeah, um, but I wouldn't know how exactly to describe it. Psychological, I guess. I don't know how does Wikipedia like.
Coming of age film also.
Definitely, yeah. It's coming of age, certainly, is a good way of putting it. Wikipedia describes it as a horror drama. I would think coming of age. drama might be better way of describing it.
One
But
sidebar I have, which I find interesting, with a lot of movies that we're getting that have horror elements, the marketing teams are like, "Oh, we are definitely marketing this as a horror movie because that's the way that people are going to recognize it."
it's the easy way to get people into theaters. Like horror is one of your more bankable genres. So for original films, especially,
Mhm.
it's probably the most bankable genre for original films. Um, so yeah, that makes sense. All right, and then
I
the
mean,
last, yeah, Doug.
yeah. So I've heard mixed things about this. So interested in it more now that you both kind of view it pretty positively. Um, the poster obviously very reminiscent of Poltergeist.
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that an influence, a fairly decent sized influence in
I
this
think
movie,
there
or
there are influences in the movie, I think, with Poltergeist, like maybe visually, but not and like thematically.
Like
But
yeah, like a couple. But I wouldn't say it's a major influence or anything.
the
okay?
ma- the
Yeah, I just thought
major
that
inf-
was interesting. I mean, I don't know who else. I mean, the TV, someone staring, you know, back of their
Yeah.
head shot. I mean, that feels like Poltergeist.
Yeah, exactly. The poster is kind of, I didn't think of it before this, but yeah, you're right. The posters are fairly similar.
But yeah, the main inspiration is definitely like '90s Nickelodeon late night Nickelodeon, as in like Snick, like
Yeah,
9 or 10 p.m. on a Friday or Saturday night. That's
it's
that's the
very
main
much for
inspiration.
our generation.
Hmm.
Okay, so maybe that's the people that didn't like it weren't from our generation.
Although I have seen like film critics who are like middle aged, who didn't necessarily watch the Nickelodeon shows, but watched like Buffy and stuff like that, and they were like, "Yeah, this movie is my jam." Like
Yeah, it's a good
does a
point.
great job of just showing, like, whether you watch these shows or not, just showing how shows that played a major part of you, like in your coming of age, um, might not necessarily, like, you go back to them later, and with like the rose colored glasses are come off and like they look very different. This does it to an extreme, this film. But yeah, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts at some point, Doug, because I think you'd definitely find it weird, but um, you'd probably get a kick out of a lot of it.
Okay.
As a fan of like a Supernatural or Charmed or Buffy, like those CWB, CW shows, um, versus the Nickelodeon ones because you didn't have cable. Um, always have to bring that
Familiar
up.
with its
Always,
influence, though.
yeah. Um, all right, and then the last one I had on here is might be my third favorite of the year. Love Lies Bleeding.
Still got to see this.
Kristen
Same.
Stewart, Ed Harris, Dave Franco. Um, another strange one. Definitely, it's a crime film. Yeah, also romantic. Um, thriller, has comedic elements. It'd be very tough to it'd be tough to put it in one box. Um, but Kristen Stewart is somebody who owns a gym. Her dad's a criminal. A bodybuilder, female bodybuilder, comes into town. They get into a relationship. She ends up working for the crime. The dad who's involved in crime, and shit gets crazy. So I won't give away spoilers beyond that. That's, you can get that gist from the trailer. But
Yeah.
a lot of great performances. Jenna Malone also, but Katie O'Brien, who's the bodybuilder that comes into town, it's a breakout performance for her. Wouldn't want to get in a fight with her. She'd absolutely destroy me. She turns out she was in the third season of Mandalorian, so I'll eventually see her in that when I catch up on that. And she's in Twisters too, and the untitled eighth Mission Impossible film. So she's got a lot of shit coming out soon.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah. She was on Westworld, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So yeah. I'd say these were the films that stood out for me for the first half of the year. Be interesting to see if which of them make the top 10 when the year is over. We do have a lot I'm still looking forward to. There's been some just in the last couple of weeks, one which will definitely make my top 10. I would think, based on how the year's gone so far. But yeah. Again, I think of the movies we just talked about, Love Lies Bleeding is on Max, if I'm not mistaken. Civil War, I think, is on Max now.
Yeah, it is.
But that would be it. I saw the TV Glow is not yet, but I'm sure most of the films we talked about are all on PVOD or VOD.
Are you guys sure Civil War's on Max?
Yeah, I definitely have seen it on Max, unless they removed it.
Unless it just got on there. I haven't seen it on Max yet.
Civil War Max. Or Civil War streaming.
Yeah, it's definitely in that A24 banner section.
No, I guess I'm wrong. Looks like I'm wrong, and it's not on Max yet.
And then I don't know if Love Lies Bleeding is.
I'm opening up Max now. I'm just going to search on there.
Yeah, definitely. I swore I saw it.
I know that Godzilla Kong was like one of the most recent things to be added to Max.
No, Civil War is not on there. My mistake.
And then yeah, it doesn't look like Love Lies Bleeding is anywhere either.
Okay, well they should be on it soon.
Abigail, I think is
Oh yeah, Love Lies
Yeah.
Bleeding is currently says coming soon on Max. So it should be on there soon since it is on there. But Civil War doesn't show at all. Maybe I don't know if it was on or is already been pulled, but
I definitely saw it on there.
I thought I saw promotions for it coming to Max, but I can't find anything right now.
I don't remember it ever hitting Max. I probably would have seen it. I would have watched the movie had it been on Max because I occasionally will just jump through all the streamers and see what's available to watch.
Yeah, I'm having like an imaginary.
Yeah, I think it's just Hitman and
Yeah, the only ones on streaming are Hitman and Dune. Everything else, it's VOD.
Yeah, I mean, some of these are at rental prices, so you're talking like $4.99 versus the $19.99.
And you can still see some in theaters. Bike Riders is in theaters.
That's on
Fall-
VOD now. Bike
Fall
Riders.
Guy you can find in theaters as well. Some theaters still. But yeah, everything else is you're not finding in theaters. Okay, let's move on to television. So here we didn't include anything that dropped that is still airing. So you're not going to hear us talk about House of the Dragon, for instance, or The Boys, The Acolyte. None of those would be mentioned. But we can talk about the ones that had finished their seasons by the end of June. So there's two shows that we've all watched, one in its entirety, one to various degrees. I just finished. It's The Bear. It's the newest show. It came out right at the end of June. I just finished the season earlier this week. Corey has one episode to go. Doug has like half the season to go. So we won't talk spoilers or anything like that. But we can share our thoughts in comparison to what others are saying online as far as the consensus. Because it definitely has more of a mixed response than the first two seasons, which seem to have like universal acclaim. Whether people preferred the first or season or the second season, it kind of depends on preference. But this season has come out more divisive than others. Mostly, I think, for the reason because they filmed season 3 and 4, or most of season 4 simultaneously, so it doesn't feel fully complete. And so I think maybe it's a show that will need to be seen, a season that will need to be seen again when 4 comes out to fully judge it. But with my expectations lowered based on everyone I talked to in person or in everyone and everything that I read online, I was like, I don't understand these reactions. This is the same show I loved previously. I definitely think it has more of the vibes of season 2 than season 1. Um, it definitely still maybe it has a little bit of an overemphasis on its guest stars and real life chefs. And doing some experimental things, moving the plot along a little slower. But I didn't have a problem with that. Probably because with all the episodes dropping at once, it's like you just go from one to the next. So I was fine with them taking detours and things like that, whether it's a flashback episode, an episode that is basically dialogue free, like the season premiere. But in my opinion, this is like the show on TV in the post Succession, Better Call Saul world that we're in. Like this is the one that stands above everything else, as far as I'm concerned. That is like a long running show, not like a limited series or anything like White Lotus, where it's all new characters and stuff every year, or Fargo, or Beef. I could keep going on. But yeah, The Bear is still killing it for me. Corey, you got an episode to go, so you would probably have the next fully formed opinion.
Yeah,
and it's the most interesting for you because you just watched all 3 seasons in a row.
I did. Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I think at this point, season 2 is still the strongest for me, by far. But I am really liking, and I think this is a criticism that a lot of people are having, but I am enjoying the slower pace of the 3rd season and how it's focusing on specific things that have been set up in the plot from previous seasons. So it's working for me because I really like these characters. Like I love everything about them. I think the show is written so well. And I just want to see like more of them. Like even the supporting characters, probably more so than like even the main character, like Carmi. Like I just love like that world and like that cast of characters. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and the finale is definitely going to leave you wanting more and being like, oh, do we really have to wait till next summer? And maybe we won't. Maybe they'll decide to drop it before and have 2 seasons.
Have they filmed it already?
I filmed like I believe like 80% of it is what
Wow.
the actor Richie played has said.
Damn. So
Yeah.
they filmed 3. They filmed 3, and then most of 4 like at the
they
same time.
did like like at the same time. Like they would go. They were like struggling with what they could even talk about like when pressed because they're like we like filming that at the same time. So like is this in season 3 or is this in season 4?
Shit.
So yeah, I mean it's like a supersized season essentially.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that'd be great.
It'd be interesting if they drop season 4 at a different time and they don't wait till next summer.
Yeah.
We'll
I would
see.
hope so.
Yeah. And Doug, you're about halfway in.
Yeah, I mean, I like. I mean, I ended on a good note with the episode. I ended on just it's kind of more my thing of what I like about the bear. I'm kind of have a different spin on the bear than some other people, just because I didn't really like the first season. I thought the ending of the first season was good, but in the kitchen, just people yelling at each other all the time and the stressfulness of that all just like doesn't really do it for me. Season 2, kind of moves away from that, and you start to explore other characters. You move outside of the kitchen a little bit, or a lot of it. And so season 3 starts out, I would say, like with more of the kitchen stuff from season 1, which kind of slowed me down, I think, in continuing to move forward with that show. But like the last episode was good. I think what's hard for me about the show is the main character, is just like not a character I like. And so like when when there's a focus on him, I'm just like, this guy sucks. Can we move on to
Yeah,
somebody else?
when you guys like would say that in text messages, I just stay silent. I'm like, fuck you guys, don't talk shit about Carmi.
Yeah, I just don't like Carmi.
He's just a broken, damaged character that shouldn't be in management. That's his problem.
Yeah, I mean he should not be doing what he's doing, and he's
Definitely
just
not.
like a destructive force. Um,
And
which
it delves more into that as the season goes on.
Yeah.
And especially in the finale, they like spell it out for you in the finale.
well, they don't need to spell it out because it's pretty clear. I mean I think especially once like cousin like Evan Moss Baccarat's character
Yeah,
had his arc where he became like not the asshole anymore. He's like he became a likable.
Richie's the fucking best.
I love Richie.
Yeah, but he became like a much more likable character. It's like, all right, well now Carby's just like the outlier here, and that he like sucks, and everyone else is like now got their shit together for the most part. So it's just kind of changed the dynamic a little bit. Like Evan Moss Baccarat's character was like sucked more than Carmi did, as far as like being an asshole, and so that kind of took things off of Carmi, you hating Carmi. But now that he's kind of had his arc, it's like, man, Carmi like really sucks. So hopefully that changes more for me. I thought like where they've taken Evan Moss Baccarat's character has been the most enjoyable thing for me about the show.
He's just a great actor. Everything I've seen him in, he's
This episode where he had like a lot of screen time with his like daughter, I thought he just like crushed it. And you just like I really like bought that was his daughter. So
yeah, and any scenes he shares with Gillian Jacobs on the show, his ex-wife, are like from season 2. They share more scenes in season 3. Like they're great together.
Yeah, just showing like the softer, like him getting to show like the softer side of that character has really like done a lot for me with that show.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah,
I think there's a reason why Forks is like, I mean, it's Forks and Fishes are like the 2 standout episodes of the show. I think
yeah,
those are the ones that people can name like off the top of their head.
for sure.
My mom
But yeah, it's
started
good.
watching the show just as a sidebar. She started watching it like yesterday or today. She already finished season 1, but she was like,
wow.
"Oh my god, I was so anxious, like the first like 2 episodes." But
I said to Doug, I'm like, as like just like I have anxiety and shit, so like watching other people's anxiety fucking means nothing to me.
yeah,
like,
it didn't really affect me.
I loved season 1. Season 1's my favorite. Like just the pure chaos.
It felt cathartic in a
It
way.
was like it's music to my ears. Absolutely, but I mean, I love season 2 and season 3 as well. So
No, I hate that shit. Get me out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
all right. Well, the other show we all watched and was I guess I wouldn't say a full rebound because I think Doug and we both like season 3 a lot, but it was True Detective Night Country. So a new creative team behind it, but with some standout performances from our new leads in Jodie Foster and what was it? Callie Reese, who played Navarro. They were
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I always sometimes I'm like, is it Issa Lopez? But that's the creator, the showrunner.
Yep.
Yeah, Kelly Reese. They had fantastic chemistry, and I just thought it was a standout performance from Jodie Foster. I thought she was the best like lead of the show since season 1. I did like Mahershala Ali a lot in season 3,
He was really good.
along with his. I thought he had a really good partnership with Stephen Dorff. But yeah, no, I thought Jodie Foster crushed it playing against type, and yeah, I didn't have problems with that. The people online, the Redditors and everything, had problems with after changing showrunners and them having illusions like a lot of references to season 1 and things like that. Um, but this season just worked for me as far as the atmosphere went and the performances. Yeah, probably could have been more than 6 episodes to fully flesh things out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that's just the way TV works nowadays. You only get so many episodes. Um, so that's more on a problem with TV in general than with True Detective. But yeah, I thought this was a solid rebound, and I'm after being just off TV for a long time and having a new creative team, and I'm excited to see what Issa Lopez brings next to the franchise.
Yeah, this was probably the weakest for me out of all the shows that are on my list and our list. But I still thought it was very enjoyable. Agree, the atmosphere, the music, all great, and then Jodie Foster is. It was really nice seeing her in this role. I thought she did a really great job. Um,
She had a nice 1-2 punch with this and Nyad
I was
over.
thinking about her performance in Nyad. I liked that performance, I think, better.
So did I.
But yeah, I mean, they're both great
But it
performances.
was
Nice to see.
also like a much more likable person. Um,
Yeah, 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 she was really good in Nyad.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
Her character in Night Country wasn't necessarily the most likable.
no,
No,
I liked her even
leading-
though she wasn't likable.
yeah, she's a good example of an unlikable character that was likable versus Carmi.
There you go. No, that's fair. That's a good. I mean, you had segueing it back to what we just talked about, and kind of goes together. That makes sense. Corey, any thoughts on Night Country that you want to add?
Um, I think the biggest thing about this show that that didn't, I don't even know if it didn't work for me. It was shocking. I wasn't expecting the supernatural aspects of season 3. I was, very much expecting it to be very grounded, which it really baits you in that it's going to be grounded. And then, it starts throwing a lot of these, more supernatural elements out there that did work for me, but it was jarring. It's a season I definitely want to go back and watch again because I think there were things that I either missed or I just want to see the whole story all at
Yeah,
once.
it keeps you wondering how much is supernatural versus how much is like real world like explanations for what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, and it doesn't fully answer a lot of
No.
some of the questions
Hmm.
And that was
related
one
to that.
show that I think would have worked better for me if I was able to binge it all from the beginning. I
Mhm.
think the weekly, because of how uh, out there and how, I guess, like complicated, not unexplained the plot was, I think it would have worked better for me if I was able to like go back and binge it or able to binge it from the beginning.
Gotcha. Okay. Um. All right. Corey, you and Doug both watched Fallout. I did not. Sell me on Fallout.
Doug, you want to?
Yeah,
You
I mean,
wanna
I
go?
could talk a little bit about well, I'll talk a little bit about it. Yeah, I mean, Fallout was, I thought, way better than I expected to. It's probably the best TV show that was done by Jonathan Nolan.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
in
on
that
Westworld and Person
he's
of
done
Interest.
Westworld, he did Person of Interest. Um, he might have had another TV show.
Okay. Yeah, I
Um,
knew he was involved with those too.
but it really just kind of brings you into Fallout's a game I've played but haven't really played all that much of, and really just kind of does a good job of bringing you into the world as someone that, for me, that had not really a ton of familiarity with it. Um, Walter Goggins' character is one of, I would say, like the co-leads, and the show does a little bit of moving between like the disaster that causes everything to be in this fallout post-nuclear apocalyptic fallout world, and then the crescent is in the post-nuclear Fallout world.
Uh,
And Walter Goggins is kind of a character that they use in order to switch back and forth between those two time frames based on a character he plays who's kind of like a gunslinger. At least in the post-nuclear Fallout world. Before that, he's just kind of like a normal guy.
yeah.
And he's great in both roles. He's just a lot of fun. He does the gunslinger character really, really well. I think that's probably the piece of it that I think is probably what you would like the most about it, Murph, just being a Walter Goggins fan.
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of the better things I've seen him in. And he just does, like I said, the gunslinger character, he just like does so damn well. He's definitely one of the best characters. The other person who's a pretty big lead, is I guess what you'd call the more traditional lead is Ella Purnell's character, she's been in a few things that I've seen her in. That she's good in everything that I've seen her in. She's also good in this. I've seen her in Yellow Jackets, which I was watching. I think she's also in Kick-Ass 2, Maleficent. I don't remember her in that. Army of the Dead. Just looking at her filmography. But she does a really great job of, she's a character that starts off being very innocent and not exposed to the Fallout world, and then you get to kind of see her get more exposed to it. So she's kind of got an interesting arc of kind of going from like, kind of similar to Ready or Not.
Okay.
Like the character arc of that character is kind of a similar arc that she goes on. But yeah, it's just a great time. It was the mysteries that they set up. You get a lot of answers to like a lot of the big ones by the end of the first season.
That's surprising for Jonathan Nolan. Like,
Yeah,
show.
yeah. He answers a lot of the questions he sets up. He answers, and then of course, as any season has, there's a few strands that they pull you into the second season.
Makes sense. I mean, you got
But very satisfied with the way that they started and ended the first season. The action is great. It's graphic at times. Lots of blood, lots of guts. But yeah, I thought this was a great show.
I think also the biggest thing that they succeeded with is they took the game, the archetypes from the video game, and made it very accessible for people that have never experienced the game, and also people that also are fans of the game. The characters were written very, very well. The plot was very mindful of stories like from the game. So if you were into that, like you would pick up on it and be like, yeah, that's awesome, cool Easter egg. But if you weren't, it was still very accessible. And it was very funny. Also, like what Doug said, very graphic, and like it had like levity to it, like a lot, but it was also very funny.
Okay.
Like it had a
Right.
lot.
Well, and
Like
Goggins
dark
funny?
humor.
Oh yeah, he's hilarious. He's
Okay.
hilarious,
All
but
right,
also
all
while
right.
being badass, like which he's very good at doing.
Yeah, his character's a badass,
And so he's like his justified character. It sounds like kind of because he's like got a gunslinging attitude to him. That was like kind of Western. Okay, all right.
yeah. I mean, if you've seen the character he
Obviously
plays,
funny
he's got a
in lots of
gunslinger
things.
look to him.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think like also the supporting cast, which there's quite a few characters that come in and out of the show throughout the season, and they're all fantastic. They're all very interesting, even if they're only in the episode for a couple minutes. They serve a purpose. I thought he did a very good job writing this, which was very shocking as far as like what Doug said, tying up.
He wrote The Dark
plot
Knight.
threads. Yeah, but I mean, as far as like with TV shows tying up plot threads, he's not very good with that.
Friggin' Murph and his hatred for Jonathan Nolan.
I like The Dark Knight.
It's very different than Westworld. I think you'd like it better. than
Oh, it's
Westworld. I know
very
you.
different.
I
That's
know I
I
liked
mean
West.
that's the obstacle. Like it was basically sell me on why I should watch another Jonathan Nolan show after I wasted a season and a half on Westworld.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I told you there was a review I read where it was someone that hated Westworld and didn't really like Jonathan Nolan stuff, and they were like, this didn't feel like like a typical Jonathan Nolan.
Okay, all right, you guys did a good job selling me on this. I would probably watch it before season 2 comes out.
You should watch it. I think just the Walter Goggins
Yeah.
alone, you would have a good time, and I think you'd really like Ella Purnell's character as well.
Okay, cool. All right, Doug, let's get into these shows solely on your list. I don't think either Corey or I have watched any of these.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the ones that are solely on my list, I'll just kind of give you guys a feel for what they're about, but I won't spend too much time on it just because.
Yeah.
One, I hope you guys see them. I don't want to spoil anything, and two, yeah, it's just you guys haven't had a chance to see them yet. So, Baby Reindeer is the first one I included on my list. This one's kind of a buzzy show, I think, where it's gotten a lot of critical praise. It's a self-biographical in a way because the actor in the show is also the guy that he's writing it about his life. It's an experience that he actually had.
Yeah.
Where a woman walks into his bar. This is kind of the setup, and then he's nice to her, and she winds up becoming like a stalker of his. Which it doesn't take the typical path that you would think it would. I would say that in that it's a lot of self exploration as to there's parts about the character who's being stalked where he's kind of broken in a way, and it kind of explores like why he's broken and why he, his part in the stalker relationship, which is really really good. He's also bisexual, and they explore that a bit, or a lot of it.
I did
And I
read
think
about
one-
the show after you told me about it, and I started hearing all the buzz, and it sounded dark and fucked up.
Yeah, it does get dark and fucked up, but it's also kind of interesting in that it just kind of explains how this character got fucked up. You kind of explore that over time, where I thought it was just going to be kind of more of a thriller
Yeah.
or drama thriller about just like this guy having to deal with this stalker that keeps kind of upping the ante. But it's a lot of it's like a self-reflection on of the main character on just like why he is the way he is and why he's. But yeah, the fucked up part is there's some sexual abuse.
Yeah, I read about that.
That it's pretty graphic. But I mean, the story is really well done. It seems like a fairly honest look at you kind of feel like he's the victim at first, and then you kind of start thinking like maybe he's not the victim as it goes on.
And it's still playing out in real life, from what I'm saying. With
Yeah, with the real life woman. Richard Gadd is the guy that wrote it about himself. Apparently, he created a play, and then he turned the play into
sounds like Fleabag-ish, but real life, because like how Phoebe Waller-Bridge started Fleabag as a play, like one woman act play, even though it wasn't based on her life, and then it turned into a TV show.
Yeah, it definitely might be a little bit like that, except for he's not, no internal monologue or anything like that, and not as funny at times. Definitely a darker show.
Yeah.
But Richard Gadd is great, the guy that wrote it, and then Jessica Gunning is the one that plays the stalker. She also does a great job. So it's really good. I think it might be something you would like, Murph, as long as the darkness didn't bother you too much.
Yeah.
Because it does get dark and uncomfortable at times.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dark Matter is another show. I don't think it's quite as buzzy because it's an Apple show, and Apple shows don't seem to get buzz, even though it feels like
even though
Apple's killing. Even though Apple feels like, like most of the stuff that I've watched on Apple, I'm like, that was a great show.
Severance back in January.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many shows on Apple that I've watched where like Blackbird, no one talked
Blackbird was
about. I thought that
great.
was a fantastic show.
Yep.
There's just a lot of
I have
shows.
two Apple shows on my list.
Yeah, there's just a lot of Apple shows, and people don't talk about them. But Dark Matter, um, it's hard to talk about the show because you're not supposed to. The first episode is kind of ruined if you know what it's about.
Okay. This is the Jennifer Connelly, Joel Edgerton show. Right?
Yeah, yep. They're the two co-leads. They kill it. It's hard to talk about how many different places that they have to go in this show without giving too much away. I would definitely say there's a sci-fi aspect to it.
Mhm.
And they're both Jennifer Connelly and Joel Edgerton are great. I haven't seen a ton of Joel Edgerton. He's good. He's really really good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No,
he
he's a strong actor.
he crushes it. So just for Joel Edgerton alone, it's probably worth checking out. And if you can get by with there being a sci-fi component, it's not like space opera or anything like that, but there is
Yeah.
something that, like, one of the main things in the show is this underlying sci-fi plot.
Yeah. No, I mean, I dig sci-fi, so
Yeah. So it might be something you might like, especially like I said, Joel Edgerton just gives a really good performance. Connolly does really great work too. So
you know, those are two great actors.
I believe it's based on a book.
Okay.
So it might, and I think it's like what they covered was was the book, and there's no other book in the series, so I don't know if it ends, if it's a
Gotcha.
one and done.
Okay.
Um,
Just like your next one.
Next show on my list, back to a show that's been buzzy.
Very.
Shogun. Shogun takes place in, I don't know what time period we are in Japan, but in the time period in Japan where they're still riding on horses and
Ghost of Tsushima times.
yeah, it feels like Ghost of Tsushima times for sure. In that, they're still fighting through swords primarily.
Yeah.
Japan hasn't really been discovered by anybody except for the Portuguese, and it basically is, the premise is that an English sailor makes his way over to Japan, having a sense that there's this island out there that nobody knows about. And it's very much in the first couple of episodes, and the story is very much like a fish out of water story, because you have this guy that knows nothing about Japanese culture, having to acclimate to a culture that is very, very different than Western culture. And so there's a heavy focus on Japanese culture. All the Japanese characters speak Japanese. They don't speak English at all, with the exception of some of them speak Portuguese. And so that's how they're able to. Some of the characters are able to communicate with him is through, they can both characters can speak Portuguese, and they communicate through Portuguese. They make Portuguese English just so that, it's not entirely, the whole thing isn't entirely in Japanese, but I would say like at least half of the dialogue is in Japanese,
Okay.
which makes it difficult for a lot of people that try to watch TV shows and F around with their phone at the same time. This is not
Yeah,
the show that you
exactly.
can do
You have
that.
to be paying attention.
You have to be paying attention because there's a lot of dialogue that you won't understand unless you're reading the subtitles. I would say it tries to steer away from, like, my understanding is the book is like white savior ish in a way. This steers away from that. He's not really. They don't really make him like a white savior, and there's a lot of focus more on like the Japanese characters
Gotcha.
than this character.
You gonna read the book now?
Probably not. But I have
all right.
I
There
have
we
read
go.
that I have read the differences. This is another one that, based on the book, where the first season ends is where the book ends.
They're
But
pulling.
my understanding,
I was gonna say they're pulling a Handmaid's Tale and continuing it.
yeah, my understanding is they're looking at continuing it, assuming they can get a story that makes sense beyond the first season. it does.
Or they're just trying to win all the best drama awards this year, and then they cancel it.
Yeah, never mind.
versus doing a limited, having to put it in limited series.
It was originally like marketed as a limited series, I think.
Yeah, I think
a lot of
they didn't
cheating when
expect it.
comes to category fraud and things like that.
Yeah, I think it wasn't. Hulu didn't expect it to be as buzzy, or FX didn't expect it to be as buzzy as it was. But the show wound up being really, really popular, and so I think that gets people or that gets studios to say like, maybe we do want to do another season of this. I think it was like one of the biggest shows that were on Hulu.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the pilot. I still need to go back and finish the whole show, but I really liked the pilot a lot. I mean, it's definitely up my alley. But to your point, you need to really dedicate like your full attention to the show. And that's one of the main reasons why I haven't gone back and and watched it, because I haven't been able to give my undivided attention to it right this second.
Yeah, the acting is all great too. The Japanese actors, and the Cosmo Jarvis is the guy that plays like the main Englishman guy, and he's great. He kind of has like a Tom Hardy feel about him.
He does,
and
like
the voice
him.
he does is kind of like a Tom Hardy. Like a Mad Max Tom Hardy, I guess.
Yeah.
Or, but yeah, it's good. And I know they signed like one of the main Japanese guys back, who I believe was on Lost at one point.
He played Jin.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
I don't know who he played on Lost.
Right,
I just know.
tried to press mute beforehand, missed it.
Oh, good.
I know Murph, you were big on.
Yeah.
Hiroyuki Sanada. Yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in Wolverine, the Wolverine movie.
Is he on Lost? I mean, no, I know him from Wolverine.
I don't know if he was on Lost, but he's the main actor billed for Shogun.
Thought when I looked at his filmography a while ago, he was on Lost.
Oh, Nestor Carbonell on the show. He's from Lost.
Okay.
He was in Dark Knight, the mayor in the Dark Knight. Is that who you're talking about?
The Mayor in the Dark? No.
Well, he's on Shogun.
Yeah, he is.
And he was in Lost.
All right. Well,
You're talking about the main actor on the show?
no. You're talking about Cosmo Jarvis?
That's what Murph's talking about. I'm not.
I don't know what anyone's talking about right now.
This guy was only on 5 episodes of Lost. His character's name was Dojin.
I'm looking at the cast list trying to find this.
But what actor are you talking about, Doug?
I don't know how to say his name.
Hiroyuki Sanada? Yeah.
Yeah, Hiroyuki Sanada.
That's who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the main actor on the show, right?
Yes.
He one of the main, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know him from Wolverine.
His character was Dojin.
He was on Lost, but yeah, he was only on one season of it.
He was a member of the Others and the Master of the Temple.
Okay. I know like the arc and stuff, but I don't remember him on the show. But Nestor Carbonell, ironically, who was listed first as a recurring character, he was the mayor in the Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises, and he had a big role on Lost.
Oh yeah, he's in. Yeah, he is he's less of a main character, but he's in the Nestor Carbonell is. You're right, in the show, and he's good.
Yeah, he was on 29 episodes of Lost. So that's sorry for the confusion for anyone listening.
It's kind of funny though. They have 2 actors that were on Lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good show for sure. I think it takes more than the first episode to kind of understand. It's kind of like a 2 episode until you understand kind of what the premise is.
Okay.
All right, but I think that's enough about Shogun. I put X-Men 97 on my list. It's probably one of my favorite shows of the year. Huge surprise. Um, kind of, it's a mix of 90s nostalgia, plus they kind of elevated the show in a lot of ways. The storytelling is better, the characters are more interesting, um, and it was just a great show.
I really
I
want to
looked
know why
forward.
the creator, writer, showrunner got fired.
I have no idea. He got
They're
fired before the
they're
show
doing a very
released.
good job of keeping that under wraps.
Yeah, I mean, I
Hmm.
know he had an OnlyFans account, but they're saying that he had that before he got hired on, and
Yeah, I heard that as well. Like it was too like big where that they should have known about that beforehand.
yeah. So I'm not really sure why he got fired. I mean, it's definitely not because he didn't do a good job. Because everyone that's watched the show, I've heard nothing but positive things about X-Men '97, and I loved it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was way better than I had any right to be, and it's really just does a great job of if you liked the X-Men TV show in the '90s, this is a must watch in my opinion.
Yeah, which I
And
did. I just don't remember any of it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that you need to remember a ton of it, but it's great. I would say there's an episode. It's episode 4 where the show just kind of elevates itself. Um, but yeah, it's a really great show, and they got some of
Speaking,
the original voice actors back, and it's just when they didn't get the original voice actors back, they got people that did a close enough version without doing an imitation. So um, yeah, it's really great.
speaking of animated '90s superhero shows, did you see the trailer for Batman Cape Crusader?
I
No,
haven't seen it yet.
Oh, all right, all right. I'll check it out after this and share your thoughts.
Oh, the
But
Amazon show, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
from
Oh no, I
Bruce
did see it.
Timm and from the creator of Batman the Animated Series,
Yeah.
along with J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves, which very much has a similar vibe to the animated series.
Yeah, I saw it a couple weeks ago or like a week ago when it dropped.
yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, I'll be
Um,
interested, Doug, to hear what you think, because I know you have a
yeah,
lot
no,
of big
I
connection
was
there.
really looking forward to Conroy coming back and them redoing the animated series, but unfortunately, that didn't get to play out. So,
Yeah,
R.I.P. Kevin Conroy.
yeah, exactly.
Um, last one on my list, and it's been on my list before. Welcome to Wrexham.
We love this
I just
show.
like I just like the show.
Makes you
It's a
happy.
docu series. It follows club that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought. So it's very much them, trying to put together a English football team that can compete. So it was on like one of the lowest tiered levels, and the goal is to keep getting promoted until they can make their way into the Premier League ultimately. So it's been a fun watch. I've been following the season a bit too, so I kind of already knew, how this one's going to play out. But spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't watched the either the live football results of the Wrexham team or the docu series, they do get promoted 2 times already. So they've already like well on their way to trying to make their way into the Premier League.
The
So
real life Ted Lasso.
yep, a real life Ted Lasso, except for they're starting like further down on the totem pole and just trying to work their way up, and
Yeah,
each tier gets harder and more challenging, and you got to
for
have more
sure.
money. So it's been interesting to see how that plays out.
All right. All right, we'll dive into mine. I'll go fairly quickly. First two were shows I did talk about in 2023. They finished their runs in 2024. So I'll do quick shots for them. The Curse, it was Emma Stone, um, Benny Safdie, and Nathan Fielder. It had like the most batshit season or series finales of all time. I mean, the show is it's hard to describe comedy, drama, cringe comedy. But the finale is like unlike anything I've seen before. Like Christopher Nolan's been talking about it, like, and doing like interviews with like the creative team. Like he was like blown away. But yeah, Emma Stone just still on her killer run of weird stuff right now with Poor Things, The Curse, and Kinds of Kindness. Then Fargo, which had the season ended last year, would absolutely have made my top five. We had done our top fives of best of 2023. At minimum, it would have been number five. It might have been number four. It would have been five or four. I look back at what I had back then, so it definitely would have knocked off Righteous Gemstones. I might have put it before Last of Us, but I think it's the best season, probably the best season of the show, and had some of my favorite moments of the show. So a perfect installment of Fargo. Then we'll get into shows strictly from this year. Curb Your Enthusiasm. It ended its 25-year run if you include the hour special before the official series started. So crazy to see Larry David put an end to it. If he really does not return to it, wouldn't shock me if eventually he's like, yeah, I got some ideas. Let's go back into the well. But ends with a very solid callback episode to the series finale of Seinfeld. It basically redoes the Seinfeld series finale, which is like as Larry David a thing as possible. That he would be like, "All right, I'm gonna take the episode of the show that I came back and you hated, and I'm basically gonna do it again." Has Jerry Seinfeld back in the episode and everything, and people were more satisfied with how this one ended, despite it being very similar to Seinfeld's series finale. But like involves trial, jail, flashbacks with witnesses on the stand to previous clips from the show. So it was wild how he was just like, "Fuck you!" Like I'm ending it my way. So yeah, that's Curb. We've got the Dynasty, New England Patriots docu-series about my Pats in that 20-year run with Brady and Belichick and Kraft. As while it is mildly a hit piece of Bill Belichick, seemingly designed by Robert Kraft, it is still just a blast to watch. Corey, you're not a Patriots fan, but you thoroughly enjoyed the show as well.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But yeah, dives into the positives and negatives of what went over during that dynasty. Doesn't like goes through the Aaron Hernandez situation, him being a murderer, goes through Deflategate, Spygate, like in depth, both of those things. It focuses a lot on the negatives as much as it focuses on the 6 Super Bowl wins. So yeah, if you're interested in football, sports, even if you're sick of the Patriots, it's worth a watch just because you're going to see a lot of you can revel in the bad shit while you suffer through their dominance as well. Then I put on Echo, the latest Marvel television show. This was the first in their Marvel Spotlight banner, even though it makes no sense because it's very much a spinoff of Hawkeye and continuation of Daredevil. So you like kind of need to know what's gone on previously with Wilson Fisk and with Maya Lopez. So the Spotlight banner was supposed to be for like standalone things where you didn't need to know everything in the MCU, but you kind of did for like need to know a lot in this one to fully like get the story. So weird choice to start off the Marvel Spotlight banner with, but I thought this was a solid TVMA debut for the MCU. Vincent D'Onofrio, fantastic as always as Kingpin. The actress who plays Maya Lopez, Aliqua Fox, something like that. I know it's Cox, like Charlie Cox. Echo TV show. Yeah, Alaqua Cox. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Apologies if I'm not. But yeah, has a great indigenous cast. Does service well to both them and to the deaf community and the disabled community. Since I mean, Maya is a freaking badass for being a deaf woman with only what is it, one leg?
Yeah, she's an
One
amputee.
leg, right?
One
Yeah.
leg. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolute badass. And yeah, this was I mean, it didn't overstay its welcome, only 5 episodes. It's like a movie. You can watch it in 3 hours. It's shorter than Killers of the Flower Moon. Watched the entire season. So even if you're down on the MCU and TV shows in the MCU, I think this one's worth giving a shot. And then for my last two, I got Masters of the Air, which I alluded to earlier. This is the third miniseries, World War II miniseries from Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. This one focusing on the not the Air Force because they didn't exist yet, but the part of the Army that were flying on the European campaign during World War II. I am weird in the fact that I think Band of Brothers is the weakest of the three, despite that being the consensus favorite of the best of the three. I would put this in the middle, and then the Pacific as the best. Pacific was obviously dealing with the what was going on in Japan, and that was the Marines, and then Band of Brothers was the Army, but on the ground, basically post D-Day, heading into D-Day, post D-Day in Europe. But yeah,
I've only seen Band of Brothers. That's the only one I've seen.
Yeah, no, I would say keep going through the others. Hopefully they do a fourth part that focuses on the Navy. They did that movie. Tom Hanks did that movie. What was it called? Like 4 years ago. Came out during the pandemic. Tom Hanks Navy movie, Greyhound, which I thought was very boring. But I think him and Spielberg, if they did a mini series, they could do much more justice to the Navy and covering something over like 8 to 10 episodes, and kind of round out all the branches of the military. Even though, again, the Air Force wasn't an official branch during World War II, it was shortly thereafter. But yeah, I thought Callum Turner, I believe from Fantastic Beasts. Yeah, Callum Turner and Austin Butler were two super solid leads, along with some supporting characters played by Anthony Boyle, Barry Keoghan, Nate Mann. They were kind of the 5 biggest characters on the show. They did a great job just expressing like how they loved what they were doing, but how absolutely like terrifying it was, then how the planes were so rickety and everything, and just completely different than like if you're watching Top Gun Maverick now and what a situation would be like with aerial combat. But it's brutal. And I thought it ultimately did the planes aspect of World War II better than Dunkirk did. Since, I mean, we've talked about none of us are the biggest fans of Dunkirk. So yeah, if you got time, you're interested in World War II, it's definitely worth a watch. And then lastly, we talked about this very briefly earlier, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Got Donald Glover and Maya Erskine. It was originally supposed to be Donald Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge which was what really had me interested. And they were going to be co-creators. There's creative differences. Phoebe Waller-Bridge dropped out. Francesca Sloan, who was a writer on Atlanta, stepped in as a showrunner, and it was really her and Donald Glover's baby. Brought in Maya Erskine from Pen 15, but the two of them have great chemistry throughout the show. I think it's far superior to the Brad Pitt Angelina Jolie movie. It does have some major. The season finale has major vibes to some of the most iconic moments of that film, but otherwise it does it very differently. The show is more like The Americans than it is like the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie. Like the two of them are paired up together to be a married couple versus Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where it's more like half a True Lies situation where they don't know they're a married couple where they're both spies, but they don't know they're spies, and eventually find out. So I thought this was better because I love The Americans, so I like that whole being forced to be put in a situation where you're married and eventually they do fall for each other in a dysfunctional way, compared to where they're first getting together and it's like, all right, it's strictly going to be like a platonic relationship. We're gonna do the work together, but we'll pretend to be a married couple, and it goes along nicely. I don't know if it's gonna be a mini series, if it's gonna be an anthology series, mini series, if it's gonna continue with the two of them. But yeah, it's a fun ride. It's similar to Poker Face from last year, where each episode kind of stands on its own. It's like case of the week, like their spy case of the week. So versus a detective case. So yeah, if you like Donald Glover, I don't see why you would not enjoy this show. Definitely feels like of a piece of his career and has his voice very present. And Doug, I think you watched some of it.
Yeah, I'm a few episodes in. It's enjoyable. It doesn't. I think probably the episode of the week makes it less of a like I need to watch the next episode.
Totally.
So I'll watch an episode and then I'll like get distracted and probably won't. It'll be weeks before I come back and watch the next episode. But it's well done.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's what I got. So yeah, we'll report back at the end of the year, see if any of these shows make our best of list, our top fives, and yeah, check them out. They're on the various streaming platforms, Prime, Hulu, HBO, or Max. I don't think we have any network shows or any.
Not surprising.
The cable shows you can find on Hulu, like the FX shows, Paramount Plus. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at everything. That's where Disney Plus. That's where you can find all the shows. You do not need a actual cable subscription to watch any of the shows we talked about. But that's all we've got through today regarding our main topic. Thank you again for listening. Please like, follow, and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, X, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Comment, like and subscribe. You know what to do. It is what it is. And now, if you'd like to know how this summer's films have been performing at the box office after the past 3 weeks since our last episode and how they're impacting our summer box office pool, which is getting more interesting, stick around for some end credit chatter. All right, guys. Like I said, it's been 3 episodes since we've last talked box office. I've got the numbers through Thursday, 7/11, July 11th. I'll just give kind of a recap of what's been going on and then go into where we're each at number-wise. So Inside Out 2, it's continuing its dominant run at the box office, passing $550 million as it aims to become the biggest animated film of all time, domestically and worldwide. The exception would be if you consider The Lion King, computer animated one, a live action film or an animated film. If not, it's definitely going to do it domestically regardless. But worldwide, that would probably be its only obstacle. It's Pixar's biggest film already worldwide. So go Pixar. Despicable Me 4 has only been out for a little over a week, but it's performing like another huge Despicable Me Minions Illumination movie so far. Definitely going to be topping 300 million. We'll see how far beyond that it gets, but it is past 150 million already. So it's got much more in the tank. So far, it'll be number one again this upcoming weekend. A Quiet Place Day One opened larger than both entries in its parent series, surprisingly, and is doing the spin-off prequel thing much better than Furiosa ultimately did earlier this summer. It's crossed that $100 million mark at this point. So that's nice to see. Horizon is disappointing. Chapter 2 has been pulled from the calendar to an undetermined date to older audiences.
I wonder if that just goes streaming.
They didn't specifically say older audiences, but it's older audiences can catch up on the film, whether in theaters or on television via streaming or PVOD. Yeah, I do. I mean, I think Chapter 2 will be in theaters. I don't know what this means for Chapters 3 and 4. They started filming Chapter 3. They think they did like a week of shooting previously before Chapter 1 premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, but I don't know what this is going to mean for the series long term. I do think Chapter 2 will be in theaters, might have a smaller presence in theaters than the first one did, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't still a theatrical release. I think it's the right move to make for more people to catch up on the movie before seeing Chapter 2, but I just don't know if Chapter 3 and 4 are actually going to turn into a reality based on the situation thus far. I mean, it's like it made 25 million so far. These were expensive movies to make. I think it was 100 million for the Chapters 1 and 2 combined, or maybe that was even individually. And Kevin Costner put in so much of it. Let me see the Horizon budget. None of us have seen it so far. We don't have any interest, but
not enough to see in theaters, at least.
Yeah, the budget's 100 million for the two films so far, and Kevin Costner putting a lot of his own money into this. He left Yellowstone this was a major gamble, and so far it's not paying off. But it's a passion project that he wanted to do, and I mean, at least he's gotten half of it created so far, even if only a quarter of it has been seen by the world so far. But Doug did draft this movie, or drafted Chapter 2, so he is down to 6.5 movies technically for the box office draft because Deadpool and Wolverine get spliced. And then obviously you drafted Horizon Chapter 2 in the last round just to hedge your bets in case Chapter 1 was a big hit and to screw me because I drafted Chapter 1 way earlier than I should have. Based on its box office, so it wasn't like it was a good pick for me. But yeah, it still sucks to lose a movie because again, every dollar counts. And then Maxine is looking to surpass the box office of both X and Pearl to be the largest film in the trilogy. It's already topped Pearl's box office, total box office. It should top X's total box office by the end of the weekend. Maybe it'll end up topping the combined box office of both of them in the end. Again, I drafted this earlier than I should have as well. I think I drafted Horizon in the 5th round and drafted Maxine in the 6th round or 6th or 7th round. I could have probably got in the last round and it would have been more appropriate there. But I'm a fucking fan of this trilogy, and I thought it would make more money than the previous ones, and it is. It's just not going to make much more than them. But as far as where we're at, each of us, at the moment, Corey is in 3rd place with 373 million. Going to rise a bunch over the next couple weeks before Doug's next movie comes out, thanks to Despicable Me 4. But yeah, his 373 million is coming from The Fall Guy, Star Wars Episode 1, The Strangers Chapter 1, Furiosa, and Despicable Me. You still have Borderlands, Alien Romulus, and The Crow coming out. Alien Romulus, I definitely am continuing to have positive vibes about that one. Probably my vibes are getting more positive as it gets closer to its release. They're cutting some great trailers for that film. We'll see what Borderlands and The Crow do. But you're at Corey's at 373. Doug is currently at 461. Should be staying around this mark for the next couple weeks until Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. It's based strictly on only 3 movies: Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which has made 170 million, which has made 110, and Bad Boys, which has made 180. So 3 films that have all performed very well. And Doug still has Deadpool and Wolverine, which should be huge. Like we said, the box office will be cut in half. That was part of the stipulations for drafting that movie.
Which is seeming like that was a mistake.
It is seeming like that was a mistake, yes. We did
it'll
not
probably
expect Inside Out to be the massive blockbuster that it is, where it's going to cross 600 million, and who knows how much higher above 600 million. But I'll let you finish.
Yeah, because Inside Out 2, and it probably would have been like more neck, or probably going to be more neck and neck than we've anticipated.
Yes. Pixar, we did not know what to expect from the slump that they've been on since prior to the pandemic. So, wasn't expecting Pixar or Inside Out to be this massive. And then, Doug, you still have also Harold and Purple Crayon, Trap, and It Ends With Us. Trap, I'm still each trailer. They're cutting great trailers as well. I keep expecting more out of that movie as well. The closer we get to it,
movies just don't perform that well. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it'll be like a good movie.
Maybe it'll be a split like Performer, where it'll be like $100 million movie. But I mean, it definitely looks more. It looks more accessible than Old and Knock at the Cabin.
Yeah.
So and even Glass. So it looks his most accessible movie since Split. So we'll see how that does. You were going to say something else, Doug?
I was just going to say, to me, like, it's going to be very difficult for Corey and I to knock you off. We need Twisters to kind of bomb.
Yeah, if Twisters needs to not do great. And all of my movies need to be like $100 million movies, and Despicable Me needs to continue to bring in
another 150 to 200 million. I mean, we'll go dive into mine. So Doug, like we said, you're at 461. I'm at 801 million. Largely off the back off Inside Out 2, which is 550 plus million of it. Then we've got the Garfield movie, which is about 90. The Watchers bomb at 20 million. Horizon a bomb, 25 million. Maxine a bomb at 10 million. Quiet Place doing Quiet Place numbers with 100 million plus so far. I mean, Maxine's technically not a bomb in respect to its budget, but as far as for a box office draft, not a great pick. But I still have Twisters and Blink Twice. I'm not expecting anything from Blink Twice, so it really Twisters is going to open, and then we're going to see how that plays, and then it's a waiting game at that point to see how you two do for the rest of the summer. But I should have another probably 100 something in the tank from the movies that I currently have in theaters, or close to it, from Inside Out 2 and A Quiet Place, and then a little bit from Maxine and Horizon. Glenn Powell, I need him to give me like 200 million for me to feel.
I think even 100 and you're probably not catchable anymore, or it'd be very difficult to catch you. 200 and like you're safe for sure. There's probably no way to catch you.
I mean, Deadpool, Wolverine. I mean,
just getting halved is gonna make me.
At minimum, you're making 200 million from Deadpool and Wolverine, so that's 666. Trap, let's say 100, 766.
Trap is not making 100.
It ends.
Stop.
Okay, we're just gonna say it for fun. It ends with us could be like this surprise hit being based on a blockbuster book where it like really overperforms. I mean, female movies overperform. When you
It would
don't
have to
think
be a
about it.
massive overperformance.
Yeah, I mean, you need like probably like it to be like a $200 million film. And Harold and the Purple Crayon, maybe it'll actually make some money. Who knows? But again, Deadpool, that's with me just saying it's going to make 400 million. Let's say it makes 600 million. That's another $100 million added to
I
it.
need Deadpool and Wolverine to be $1 billion movie.
You're only 250 million behind me. I don't think it's like no wait. You're 350 million behind me. And count it's going to count. All right,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's going to be tough.
You're gonna be tough to catch because of Despicable or Inside Out.
Yeah,
I think Corey has a better shot of catching you than I do. Because his movies are more of like the unknowns where I could see them actually performing well.
Yeah, well, Corey should be above you by the time Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. After this weekend and next week, and another full weekend of Despicable Me 4. He'll definitely be above you by the time Deadpool comes out. And then Twisters will have come out next weekend. So we'll have a very good idea where I'm landing come next weekend. And then, yeah, we'll just ride with you two for the end of July through August.
I mean, who's to say Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't make $1 billion domestic?
It'd be the biggest movie of all time. So.
It would be.
I'm gonna say right now it's not making $1 billion.
That's a bold statement.
I think the ceiling is 600. Really,
I'd say that's
and that's overestimating.
Yes, I would say 600 million is probably
For an R-rated.
the most it can make. Deadpool 1 and 2 both made between 300 and 400 million. So I could see up to 100, 200 million more than that at this point, up to 200 million more at this point. So maybe you could get like 300 million from this, probably, Doug. So yeah, let's see if Trapping It Ends With Us overperform Harold and Purple Crayon. You never know.
Try to say that with a straight face.
You never know.
Harold and the Purple Crayon could be like this massive hit. Change the landscape of movie going as we know it.
I mean, if made 100 million, it looks like basically the same movie. So that's like that's 100 million. And yeah, Corey, we really don't know. Borderlands,
no idea.
I don't have a fucking clue what Borderlands can make. Alien has precedence to make over 100 million. The Crow, I don't know. So Despicable Me, we'll see how it legs out over the next month. But yeah, it is going to be hard. I will acknowledge it will be hard for either of you to top me, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still worried about Doug just because of the sheer number of movies he still has left. And one of them is his first round pick. Mm-hmm. And he has that close to $100 million lead on you at the moment, Corey. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, losing Horizon though, that was big. That was big because I mean there was a chance that 1 wouldn't do that good and 2 would come out and just fucking be a huge hit, and then I would have been like, how dare you for taking 2 and I took 1. But
yeah, they're projecting a domestic opening for her than the Purple Crayon for 10 to 20 million.
Yeah, that checks out. What are they projecting for some of these others
that I have?
Yeah, or either of you, any of us, because none of us had a movie opening this weekend. So this weekend we're strictly running on holdovers because none of us drafted long legs, which we should have.
Anything about Ends With Us.
Okay, but yeah, long legs. It's an overperformer. It's Neon's biggest opening weekend of all time, like by far. Looks like it's going to be 20+ million. So yeah, that one was the horror movie we should have drafted this summer versus The Watchers, Maxine, Quiet or not a Quiet Place, The Strangers, and yeah, those were all the horror movies drafted. Oh, and Blink Twice. So, oh well.
It Ends with Us has a projection of 20 to 30 million
Yeah.
for the opening weekend.
Still has a way to go before it opens, right? It's an August movie.
Borderlands 10 to 20. That's what people are saying.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, you're pretty safe, I feel like, at this point.
we'll see.
My best shot is just Deadpool and Wolverine somehow becomes $1 billion movie.
Well, our next episode will likely be in 2 weeks during the middle of Deadpool and Wolverine's opening weekend, or maybe we'll do it on Sunday so we can cover its opening weekend in its entirety and cover the. I'm just speculating and cover Comic-Con, and the various announcements that we get from Marvel at the very least, because I'm sure they need to have a big panel for their sake with some exciting stuff.
I need all of the Taylor Swift fans to go see Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, maybe she'll start promoting it on her Eras tour and all over social media, and
I need the power of Taylor Swift
and maybe
behind
she'll
me.
pop up in the movie. So
yeah, I need all the Swifties to go see this movie.
Yeah,
a couple of times.
Even if she's not in the movie, it wouldn't surprise me if they do a Hugh Jackman like approach, like they did in Deadpool 1 and 2, where they make some sort of a nod to her.
They gotta have her in the movie. I want her in the movie. Blake's got to be in the movie. Like everyone they fucking know needs to be in this goddamn movie.
Oh, Blake Lively, yeah.
Yeah.
Rob McElhenney, just everyone.
Well, we know Rob McElhenney's in the movie, but he's not like his face isn't in it. He's just like one of the
A voice.
Or he plays.
I don't know exactly who he is. So.
Oh, they were saying he was. They showed him in in Welcome to Wrexham, and he was in like a Time Variance Authority outfit.
Oh, nice.
But
that's
they all were
like in Lost. He was in the Dharma Initiative before. I watched Sunny.
Yeah,
but it was like
it's basically
couple seasons into Sunny.
It's like the Daniel Craig Stormtrooper type of. Yeah, you're like not going to see his face or anything. It's just like.
Interesting.
There.
Okay.
It's kind of what I gathered, but.
All right. Well, in 2 weeks, we'll be able to talk about Twister since that comes out next week, and we'll be able to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine finally. Check back with us then. As always, this has been Corey, Doug, and Murph at Live Breathe Film. We'll see you again next time, film fans.
Bye.